Hello and welcome back to New Paradigm Healing. This series focuses on Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy. Our intention is to educate, inform, and support the conscious and responsible use of ayahuasca in the Western context. If you want to know more about Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy and our upcoming trainings and workshops, sign up for our mailing list to be the first one to know about the latest news at 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙪𝙗𝙤𝙠. Hello and welcome back to our podcast, Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy. I am here with Casey. Welcome, sister. So good to be here with you again. And we're going to dive into the dark night of the soul and facing fears with the ayahuasca, because this is something that I think most people encounter when they work with this medicine in a conscious and responsible way. And also this time of transition on the planet collectively and globally that we are in, triggers and brings up a lot of personal fears. So I think even people can relate who never really worked with the medicine. Regardless, we all experience these emotions. So I'm excited to talk about that with you, sister. How are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. This one is really interesting. It's the fear of it all. There's just so much that comes up with this. So I'm excited to dig in and see where this takes us.
Yeah, well, first of all, I would like to share that the name of the medicine ayahuasca means the wine of the dead or the wine of the soul. And definitely most people are familiar with the phrase, the dark night of the soul, in the context of working with the ayahuasca on your healing journey. And I think that from a healing perspective, that's actually a very important point and milestone to experience and to move through. And it's most people look at it as a big challenge, which it is obviously on some level, but also I think that it's also a huge opportunity for liberation and creating real change that will have a long-lasting effect in your life. So how was your experience about that, or what do you feel?
Yeah, so my experience coming back and the fears that I faced were pretty intense because the lockdowns had just started. And so, it was automatic, like in your face. There's all of these people pushed and trying to get out of these countries, and people are wearing masks and gloves, and just the whole thing had shifted from the time I had gone to the jungle and then the time I had left. And there was so much fear. And I was right in it. Like, I was like, what is going on? And so it took me to a place with the lockdowns where I really was inside. And I had just had to really sit with myself. And a lot of those relationships and friendships started just completely falling away because I was no longer vibrationally aligned with them. There were maybe two people that I felt like I could talk to about this. Like, it was just insane, the lack of support I had from my quote unquote old world and where I found myself here. So I really had to start praying and sitting with myself and figuring it all out, because whenever these, people started showing up in my life, I was ready for that next friendship, that next relationship. So my entire group is completely different now. I was told that was probably going to happen. And I was like, okay, not my friends. This won't happen to me. And it did. So it all allowed me to force myself into this amazing space of reflection and getting these perspectives of myself that were so terrifying and so uncomfortable to look at. And I didn't have the people that made me feel better. And, I really had to examine it on a personal level. And I'm still doing that, meditating every day and trying to figure it out. But there was a lot of fear around what was going on in the world. And I was getting a totally different perspective than I did beforehand. So I saw just this big picture of the world. And I used to just ask people what they thought, and then I would take maybe what felt true about this, what felt true about that, and then form my own. But when I started asking and getting clarity and spending time in nature and feeling these vibrations, I was able to go to source myself, and I didn't need those same people to get like validation for a decision, for instance. Like, it was just,
Wow.
it stopped being scary because I knew my truth, and I knew it was coming from that space inside that was mine. And it wasn't, it took the fear away because I didn't have to have any validation.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. Like there is some points that I definitely want to talk about, because I think really I can totally relate. All of the people who I work with and guided through this process also had this experience. As you mentioned, if you have a guide to prepare you, they tell you in advance that your life will change. And one of the big changes, like relationships do change in some shape and form. And yes, you can observe that you will not resonate with certain people anymore who really resonated with before, simply because you are different. You are in a different vibration and different frequency. And at the beginning, there is, I wouldn't say it's a loss, because it's a natural process of coming together and then going away, that's just life. But we do experience, I think, a lot of the time as a loss, and people leaving or not loving us anymore. And this brings up also a lot of fear of, okay, maybe it's something wrong with me. Maybe I am not right, because all these people, I don't resonate with me anymore. It also brings up, I think, fear of loneliness and just loss of love, that, oh my God, now I'm alone. I feel I cannot relate to other people, or they cannot relate to me. It's very lonely, feeling disconnected. That can also bring up fears. And I loved, what you shared, that the lockdown, however challenging it was for you, but it was also an opportunity for you, and you took it. You choose to take it as an opportunity to reflect and go within yourself. And this really helped you to move, to look at those fears, to face them, and to move through them, and to find that type of internal guidance that brings you safety and clarity, regardless of the outside circumstances. May that be other people's opinion or validation, as you said, because we all want to be validated and accepted and belong and be recognized. Obviously, that's natural. But that need for it, I observe this a lot in people, that need for external validation, simply because we do not have access, as you said, to our own truth, to our own higher self, to our own intuition, to our own really the wisdom that we have or can access. Therefore, we often rely on information from other people that comes through their filter and their perspective, and naturally, and then we make base our decisions on those, and kind of use that as a framework for our individual life. The problem with that, I think, mainly is that nobody knows you and what's best for you, only you. So trying to navigate by relying on what others think it's best for you, it's kind of a little bit futile from that perspective. And that sense of coming back to your center and to that connection and to that source of information and wisdom and guidance that comes from within you, I think it's a very empowering and liberating part of the process, once you've through the fear and the panic. So how was your experience with that?
Well, I do video production for my job, and people were terrified to go on or hire any kind of video production. And so I really had a lot of space, and I would in the past go so that I wouldn't have to sit with it. because it was too difficult to sit with. And I don't think I was prepared or ready or had the tools yet to sit with what I needed to sit through. But I think the biggest fear was just knowing that I had to sit with it. And then I had
fear of facing the fears. I
Yes.
think that is so common. I love that you share that, because we all have that. I don't want to go there. I have to go there. I have to look at it. But I don't want to do it, you know.
And there was so much trauma, and it was great. You know, I had exactly what I needed through it, but you know, having that coach or that prep, you know, it can always be better looking back. You know, I really had to navigate this solo. There were people.
What happened with the environment and your relationships? So you said that you kind of not lost, but let go some of the relationship that didn't resonate with you. And where are you now? Are you, have you connected with, you know, people, new people, or you are very solitary right now, or where are you
Yeah,
now?
I still have friends from before. Like my three best friends. I mean, I still do, but there were about half of them, and my very
Right.
close half, that when I came back, I don't know, I can't even tell you what happened. It just
Right.
dissolved. I mean, I can tell you each was different, but it was okay, and I didn't have to work at the dissolve. It just was very natural.
Totally.
And so there's no hard feelings. And just opening myself up to new people had brought, like, you know, instead of going out on a Saturday night, you know, to the bar, I'm going to my friend Amber's, and we're saging ourselves and doing new moon intentions. Like, that's what's fun for me now, and cacao ceremonies, yoga
Totally.
classes, and meditation. So I think I had always known this life that I wanted to live, but it was a really I mean, I'm still going through these pockets of trauma trying to live that life, because I didn't feel worthy of that life. And
Of
that is a
course.
self-esteem and all of the things that we have to, you know, deprogram through this whole process. So
Yeah. And as you are opening and working through this, are you connecting with new people who more resonate with this person who you are right now?
yeah, and
Mm.
I'm 100% authentically myself, regardless of who I'm around. And so that's
That's amazing.
these other people in my life. It's like I'm different, and it's interesting because I'll say something, and I'm used to filtering myself and saying what they want, and they put me in that box, and I've allowed it, and they don't know how to take it. So these boundaries now are set, and it's interesting. It's like people either respect it or they don't, but I have to honor myself in those spaces.
Absolutely. That is so cool. Thank you for sharing that. I have the same experience, and that's definitely something that is, I think, a result of this stepping into your own center and your own guidance, and then expressing that without fear. And as you said, you know, once you accept yourself and respect and express who you are, you automatically start to attract and magnetize people who are, you know, similar frequency, similar vibration, and these new people will start to come into your life as well. So that's kind of, as we look at it, death rebirth kind of cycle. The death part is the letting go what doesn't resonate, but there is another part of it, which is a liberation, an opening, a receptivity that is present, that creates new type of relationships that, as you said, more fulfilling for you at the present moment, different activities, different kind of people, because that's what more resonates with you.
In our notes, you were talking about like going like crazy, and I did have a funny story about that.
Please.
So I had seen this giant perspective, and I started talking to my friends like, hey, God showed me this, like spirit showed me this. And they did. One of them in particular was like, I can't, bye. And I'm like, really? Like, it, because she thought I was crazy. Like, when I said the things that I saw, what was going on with the world, she thought I was crazy, and we aren't friends anymore. And we were friends for over 20 years. But it was
Wow.
because, yeah, that was exactly it. You said, you know, you think you're going crazy. And I'm like, I knew I wasn't. But like,
Right.
maybe that's what crazy people think.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I definitely wanted to talk about that fear, because I think that's also familiar for people, as your perspective shift, as you mentioned earlier, that it's kind of going from an external guidance back into an internal guidance. I think it's a good way to describe it, what's happening, but as a consequence, your perspective shifts completely on things. And as you're transitioning, and as this shift in perspective is happening, really there is a sense, I think, of dissolution of personality, the conditioned part of personality. So there is a type of confusion when there is real doubt and fear that maybe I am getting it wrong, maybe I am completely crazy, maybe this is not true, maybe I cannot trust, what I'm feeling, what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing, maybe I am losing it, maybe they are right, and I think that was definitely for me part of the dark night of the soul, that this fear can rise up because of external circumstances, but also internal doubts, in, okay, this is a very different path. Am I sure that I want to take it and it's going to be good for me? And, it brings up a lot of things. Like, how did you experience that?
Well, I wasn't, there are a couple of friends that, there was some medicine recently that I did, combo, I've heard it pronounced both, the frog. And yeah, they're very against it. And I don't understand why. I couldn't understand how somebody can tell me what's right or wrong for me. I still don't understand that. I'll never understand that. But because of that, that was a boundary. And I just said, listen, I didn't say anything when you got your tattoos. Like, this isn't about you. This is my body, and please respect my choices. But I haven't talked to them since.
Right. So you always had this this trust that no matter what people say or what their opinion is, I'm secure and I'm trusting in my experience, and that will guide me and my actions. And you come to this place as you work through the fears, obviously, and went through your own process. That's amazing. Well done, sister.
Thank you. I mean, it feels so, when you step into your sovereignty, it's contagious, and you can't not anymore, because it's your soul, it's who you are, it's your connection, it's all of it. So
I love what you shared, that you cannot not be yourself anymore. Like, if you try to suppress, that voice and that knowing and that wisdom, it's gonna just get louder and louder until you act upon it. So I think, that also a lot of people experience this. And another aspect of working through the fears, I think that a lot of people think that, okay, the goal is not to have any fears. And I mean, that would be lovely. Like, I would love to get there, I think, not to experience any fear. But I think my experience more like that courage is feel the fear and do it anyway. So like, even though there is the experience of fear that might be moving through in that particular moment, that doesn't hold you back from acting upon on your desire. It doesn't paralyze you. It doesn't stop you. You're still able to take action and move through it, as you said. So I think that's important for people to understand, that working with this medicine, gonna train you how to do this warrior path and not just dissolve your fears and they're gonna just suddenly not be there. But this is really an opportunity to courageously move forward and honor and respect ourselves, and that truth, that comes from within, and it's personal and unique to each individual. And of course, as you said, respect other people's path and choices. And this is a constant work, as you said, but it is so liberating, as you said. It's just like, tell me about that feeling of liberation, and how does it feel to be in more authentic relationships for you?
I feel like I was never truly living. I was living for other people, and I really did care what they thought deeply. Like, and I don't. Because I love myself, and I think that was the key. And the more and more I step into that, the more and more I have to keep. It's the drug. That's the addiction, you know. And I know that I'm supported 100%. And the more I step into that flow, the more that I'm supported.
Just again, getting back to following internal guidance versus living our life for others, and basing our choices on other people's opinion and information from the external. When we are talking about internal guidance, for me personally, that's more like an emotional, intuitive type of spiritual thing. That's definitely not something mental and logical for me. And that's also a huge shift in terms of coming from a reality when we are thinking all the time, and it's very mind oriented, into a reality when your guidance is coming more from a bodily, emotional, energetic, spiritual type of source and information that you feel aligned with and connected to. So what does it mean to you? How do you experience that inner guidance that you're referring to?
Yeah. Well, you said live with your brain, and now I live for my heart, and that's been the biggest game changer. So even when I step on a shoot and I'm working and in my zone, and if I'm connecting from my heart with them, it's a game changer to how that product is, how our relationship works, and how that goes. So I think if that's the case in all of my relationships, if I'm really not in my head and really just going for my heart, then it's been magical.
Wow, thank you. You are such a perfect example of this beautiful medicine work and integration. Oh, thank you for being here and sharing your journey kind of live, like, right? we are reporting as you're going. Yeah. Yes. Everybody who can see you, you see that, your energy and your vibration totally matches what you're saying. And yeah, I would like to mention in terms of fears that what I recommend people not to take a big decision when you are afraid. So, or by the way, if you are emotionally charged in general, but especially if you're really scared, if you're really just, in fear and you experience a lot of anxiety, then find support, reach out, find tools to navigate through that state, to calm down, to come back to your center, and make decisions when you are in that space. Because when you are afraid, you are not rational, you are not tapped into that intuitive guidance. It's a very paranoid, irrational mind state, and also it's a state of disconnectedness. So it's not, probably you're not going to have the best results, what you truly desire. So if you are overwhelmed with any emotion, may that be fear, reach out, get support, find tools to navigate through and center yourself, and then, look at your situation and have some patience before you make big life changing choices.
Absolutely. And I really feel, because it can get really scary. It really can. So yeah, I encourage anybody who needs help, like, just reach out. There are a lot of support systems. There's a lot of groups on Facebook. We've got several groups on Facebook. But yeah, reach out, because the support is key. And when you feel alone and isolated, and you don't have the proper tools, and you don't quite, have the connection or the guidance, it can be terrifying.
Absolutely, absolutely. We can testify that as spiritual warriors. And yes, our group on Facebook is Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy, where you find our community and some community support there. So please join us and follow our offerings there. And emphasizing again just the integration. That's why we are doing this podcast. As you can see, it's a never-ending story, so to say, but we are learning how to ride these waves. We are empowering ourselves with tools, with information, with different practices that really work. So it's very, very important, that you have supportive community, you have spaces to connect to, that you do not feel so alone, disconnected, afraid, whatever is going on for you, especially when you feel overwhelmed. A lot of people have this trauma response to withdraw and isolate themselves even more and make it much more difficult for themselves to move through these intense emotional states. So it's imperative that you remember that that's when you need the support the most, when you feel overwhelmed, and there are plenty of support out there. So please reach out, connect, and have a therapist, a guide, a healer to guide you, to give you support sessions, try different things, see what works for you, what is really beneficial for you. And if you are open and receptive, you will be guided, to find the places, people, and things that will work for you. Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And we love you all so much.
Yes, so much. Big love to you all, and stay tuned for our next podcast, and follow us on Facebook, Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy, and lots of love to you all, wherever you are on the planet right now. Big love.